I really hope you're doing really well. Welcome back and welcome to my July wrap-up. So I actually read a fuck ton of books in July. I had a really good reading month. Started out really strong. I went to the YA Literature Convention at the beginning of July and I picked up a bunch of books there, including some free advanced copies and stuff for different books. So yeah, that was just really great fun. And then I was also away with my family for a few days, and like my grandma, she likes to go for naps in the afternoons, and then me and my mum could just sit and read books in the afternoons. So I managed to get through a lot of like backlog, a lot of arcs that I'd gotten, either earlier in the year or just actually the week prior when I decided to go on NetGalley and see if I could get lucky with getting approved for some. So yeah, I got a shit ton read, and yeah, I will let you know all about it. So I finally started to read the sequel sort of trilogy to the Wolf Brothers series, starting with Viper's Daughter. So if you don't know, the Chronicles of Ancient Darkness is one of like my comfort series. I read it when I was a kid. I loved it. It's one I go back to time and time again. And then the author Michelle Paver announced I think it was back in 2018 this got published, that she was returning to the world for 3 final books to finalise Torak's journey in this amazing sort of, Stone Age sort of inspired world. It's such a fantastic series, and Viper's Daughter is absolutely amazing. It's a really great return to the series. It's really great to see where Torak, Ren and Wolf are after the events of the last book, Ghost Hunter, and how much time's passed, how they're living now with everything that happened at the end of the last book and the last sort of bit of the story. And then as well, just sort of seeing what it's setting up for this new trilogy, our new antagonist, our new sort of threat. And yeah, this was just a really great return to the world and stuff, Do I think that this needed a sequel? No, I think that, the original 6 are still like really well put together and really well, that you have the overarching antagonist of the Soul Eaters the entire time, whereas they're sort of dealt with by the end of that last book, and this, whilst picking up some thread of that, does just feel a little bit like, oh, and now there's a new antagonist that we didn't know about prior, and it's very clear they didn't really plan for this, so, that's my one little nitpick, but I'm not going to complain. I just really enjoyed being back in this series. And kind of just to sum things up as well, I then read Skin Taker and Wolfbane, which are sort of the last 2 books in the series. So Skin Taker I loved, such a fantastic concept with the idea of the comet hitting the forest and the implications of that, how it throws everything into disarray, how it affects Torak, how it affects Wolf and his sort of pack. It was just a really interesting just natural disaster to throw into our protagonists into, and then giving them this quest to go on to try and restore the World Tree, and how it's affecting Torak, how it's affecting everybody, and then seeing as well what our new antagonist is up to as well. I actually really like this one. Of the 3 of these, I think this is my favourite. I can't even put down why, I just think it was really great. And you get to see my favourite boy, Finkid, absolutely shine in this book as well. And then lastly, Wolfbane. It has happened, guys. I have physically cried at a book this year, and it was Wolfbane. If you've read this book, I'm sure you can guess at which point I started bawling. But this really just rounded off the series. Like, yes, I feel like this trilogy maybe didn't need to happen, but at the same time, I still loved it, and this just felt like such a finale to the Wolf Brother series, to the Wolf Brother world, to these characters, and it just wrenched my heart out of my chest. I told Michelle Paver off for making me cry at Yalk, which was quite funny. But yeah, it was, I have nothing but good things to say about this ending. Like, it was just really great. I really like how everything, really came full circle, and it really came back to just being about Wolf and Torak's relationship together and stuff, which is what made the first book so compelling in the first place. So overall, just this sequel trilogy I just absolutely adored. I'm so happy to have it like as part of the series and stuff, and I really now want to go and just binge read the entire thing in one go. Like, yeah, I really love this one. And yeah, so after my trip to Yalk, I had a day in London where I was, not really, I was waiting around for my bus at night sort of thing, so I just went and sat and I read some books. So I got really lucky to get an advanced proof copy of Unraveller by Frances Hardinge. I read Frances Hardinge before with Deep Light, which I absolutely adored. So I was actually really excited to go back to her work and see, if it was just a one-off, if I really liked this author's writing. And Unraveller knocked it out of the fucking park. Holy shit. I think this book comes out in September or something, so you have got to go and pick this up when it comes out. What this book is it's sort of set in a world where people can curse other people. You know, if they've been wronged, if they have enough hatred towards somebody, if they have enough animosity, or they feel like they've been wronged by this person, they can then enact a curse on that person. Follow our main character Kellen and his friend Nettle, and Kellen has the ability to unravel people's curses, hence the name Unraveller. And he sort of goes round offering his services to people who've been cursed, and he gets to the root of the curse to try and find out why it was caused in the first place, and then use his magic to help unravel it. And then everything kind of gets kicked into motion when he and his friend Nettle are arrested, and they are bailed out of jail by this man Gull, who works for a mysterious benefactor who wants to employ Kellen to her services, and sent him on little missions to go and target specific curses by cursors. And everything kind of goes from there. You've got Kellen and Nettle trying to find out who they've been employed by, what greater scheme they're getting pulled into, and why is this their benefactor after these specific people in the first place. With, like, you know, and they have plenty of secrets of their own, particularly Nettle, and yeah, it's just fantastic. Honestly, it's just such an amazing story, because at the end of the day, this whole idea about the curses and unraveling the curses, it's like a metaphor or allegory for taking your anger out on other people and feeling wronged, and almost in a sort of, like, you know, Kellen's almost like a therapist, and sort of, you know, kind of getting to the root of why you've cursed another person, why you feel that way, and how to heal from that and how to move on from that. It's just absolutely fantastic in the way that it does that in the context of this fantasy world. And, you know, the characters are absolutely amazing. You know, Kellen and Nettle are a really, really great duo. I really liked Gall as well. He was a really interesting character because you don't know much about him, and then you actually find out a lot more interesting things about him. And honestly, just, oh, I've got nothing but good things to say about this book. This was such a 5-star read for me. It just blew my mind, and I just absolutely loved it. So when this one comes out, I highly recommend that you pick it up, because it's just honestly fantastic. And I was lucky to get an advanced proof copy of The Agency for Scandal by Laura Wood. Now, this one's not actually out till January, so I'm just going to have to sort of fucking cry on my own until somebody else reads this who got it at Yelp, because this book is also amazing. So this follows, it's set in the sort of late 1800s in London, and it follows a group of women who are sort of part of the secret society, who go around and they procure, you know, they find out information, they procure information for other women in society to use against their husbands if their husbands are mistreating them, oppressing them, in order to secure their own financial independence, or to stop their husband from, you know, beating them and things. Because obviously in this context of the world, you know, the law's not on the side of women. Women are possessions in their husband's eyes, so what this agency tries to do is give them a little bit of their agency back, a little bit of their independence back, in whatever way that they can. I follow our main character Izzy, who is sort of down on her luck financially. Her father died quite suddenly, leaving them with no source of income, and had actually squandered a lot of their savings and stuff. So Izzy's in a position where she's quite high up in society, but she's having to almost conceal her financial problems from the rest of the world, from her best friend Teresa, and is also having to conceal the fact that she now works for the agency, for Mrs. Finch, and for the aviary, as it is called. And so she's in a very difficult position of keeping lots of different secrets, and then everything kind of gets into motion when she gets involved with incident involving one of society's high-profile members, Max Vane, who she may or may not have been in love with for the last year. And everything kind of goes from there as she and Max start to get to know each other, and she starts having to reveal some of her secrets to him. And oh, this book was just so good. I mean, I'm always a sucker for books like this, where the women in sort of Victorian time England are given back some of their agency and some of their independence, you know, in a time where they didn't really have as much as that. And I think this does it in such a really fantastic way. I really loved all the different women that you see here, and like why they've all ended up at the aviary, why they've all ended up doing this job. And as well, just the plot's just really, really intriguing as well, because you end up getting caught in this bigger sort of political mess that they didn't really realise they were getting involved in. Max Vane as a character as well is lovely. Like, he's just such a sort of, I don't want to say himbo, because he is like really smart, but he's such a simp for Izzy by the end of the book. Like, and it's not really spoiled to tell you that this is a romance, you know, you can tell where it's kind of gonna go. But yeah, I really just loved their interactions and their relationship and how that grew over the course of the book, because I like that Izzy you know, she knows that she's infatuated with this man, she knows it's like lust rather than love. But then as they go over the course of the book, she's like, oh, you know, it's all very well being like, oh, this person's very handsome and, you know, has a lovely laugh and that's caused me to be infatuated with him. I wasn't expecting to like him now that I started to speak to him and things. And I really like how that relationship developed, how her own feelings sort of developed from lust to something a bit more. And you can, and as well, just sort of everything's from her point of view, so obviously you don't see what's going on in his head, but it's written in a way where she's just so flipping oblivious to his affection towards her as the book goes on. You know, he's like doing all these nice things for her and she's like, oh, he's so chivalrous, isn't that nice of him to do that for any young woman, and you're sat there like, is he? He's in love with you. So it's just such good fun, I absolutely love it, and oh, you have to read this when it comes out because it's just so good. I then got onto a few of the books that I had received arcs for, so I finally got round to reading Flotsam by R.J. Theodore, but only apologise to the author and the publisher for not getting to this before now because I got approved for an arc of it back in January. I know. This is a really, really fantastic book. It's sort of set in a world that is, you know, it's a planet that's basically been exploded, but there's something still keeping the pieces of the planet kind of not in orbit, but sort of in an atmosphere, and people are able to still live on these little sort of islands above a sort of flotsam of rubbish and, you know, rubbish and garbage and stuff that they've kind of shoved over the side of the island. And you're following this group of sort of sailors who pilot an airship, and our main character and captain. And it sort of starts off with them enacting a sort of, they've been hired to, you know, abseil down into the flotsam and retrieve something. And it turns out it's a sort of old ring, and when they finally surface from the flotsam, because it's illegal to actually go scavenging in the flotsam, they're sort of chased down by a sort of official kind of ship. They manage to lose it, but then when they go to they go back to the person that they got hired by in the first place, they find out that he actually has an ulterior motive. Someone was hiring him to hire them, and a lot more people are after this ring than they realised, and people are more than willing to kill to get their hands on it, and everything just kind of goes from there. It's such a fantastic concept of this world that's been like exploded, and you also got like these sort of different deities and stuff that have you know, created, you know, cultures and countries sort of around themselves as the figureheads and stuff. And then you've also got these sort of like visiting aliens, which are just the weirdest sort of creatures. I can't even tell you what they look like because I'm still kind of confused, but they've got this really interesting culture, and we don't really know why they're here either, but then they're also interested in getting this ring. Such a fantastic story, such a fantastic world building, and just sort of interesting sort of balance between sci-fi and fantasy, I think. I really, really liked the alien culture as well, and kind of what you see of them, and how it just very clearly the author was like, why would an alien society be anything like ours? So this alien society is one that's completely dictated by class, even down to like what pronouns you use. That dictates what level of class you are within this society and stuff. So that was really interesting. I really liked our main characters as well. Our main character is an older woman. She's in her 40s or 50s or something, and you know, she's not by no means old, but you know, you're so used to these sorts of stories having people in their 20s or something. So it was really, really nice to see someone, you know, not quite as young be the sort of forefront of this story. And it also made things just a little bit more interesting, a little bit more tense, because she gets caught up in these situations that are almost impossible to escape. So it's like, okay, she's been doing this for like 10, 15, 20 years. How is someone with her experience going to get out of this sort of thing? You know, if someone with her experience and her street smarts and stuff is getting, you know, she's barely making out of all these situations, you know, God, how would someone in their 20s even cope? So that was really, really great to sort of, it just really added some tension to the story and stuff. And yeah, I absolutely loved this one. I'm definitely going to be reading the rest of the series. I will have a full spoiler-free review coming for this, since I was approved for an e-arc of this. You know, that's kind of what, you know, if NetGalley gives me a book, you can definitely assume to see a spoiler-free dedicated review. So that will be coming soon. I've just been really busy this last week to try and write it and then film it. But yeah, definitely keep an eye out for that. But Flotsam was absolutely fantastic. I then read The Children of Gods and Fighting Men by Shauna Lawless. I loved this one as well. This is sort of set in kind of 900 AD Ireland, and it's sort of, you know, you're following sort of two main characters, Gormla and Fola, And Gormla is one of the last of the Fomorians, who are a sort of race of people who have fire magic, and they've been sort of hunted to extinction by the didnt, which is the group that Fola is from. And they're another sort of race of immortal magic beings, and Fola in particular has healing magic. And Gormla's, you know, her sort of entire goal is to see her son Citric on the throne as the King of Dublin, and she will kind of do just about anything to get that. So a lot of it's very much, you know, political manoeuvring on her part and manipulating other people and using her beauty and, you know, her sort of seductive sexuality and stuff to convince all these kings and these lords and stuff to kind of do her bidding. She's a really, really interesting character, is Gormla. And I really, really enjoyed saying just how cunning and how ruthless she is. Fola as well, she is from the didnt, and they're sort of like quite a reclusive sort of sect. They've sort of sworn to not get involved in the lives of mortals anymore, but she kind of gets thrust into things when her sister is pregnant and it's found out that it's by a mortal man, which obviously goes against their laws. So with her sister exiled, Fola is given care of the child who is a mortal boy and is sent out into Ireland to try and find somewhere for him to live, and sort of in doing so she's also sent to go and spy on one of the kings of the sort of provinces, and everything kind of goes from there for her. It's really interesting for her from her point of view as well, because she's obviously a healer and it very much goes against her instincts as a healer to stay out of things and not help everyone that she sees. And they've also been told in the didnt that, you know, mortal men are just bad people, there is no goodness in them, but it's for Fola to go out there and find out the greyness of that and how, yes, mortal men can be evil, but there's also good in them too, and they really are just trying their best. You know, I really liked her arc in this story. Really, really interesting story, really great ideas of, like, you know, set in Ireland with kind of the conflict between the rising tide of Christianity versus the sort of Viking paganism that sort of ruled there for a while because of Viking settlements and stuff. And yeah, really interesting to sort of see the author's spin on historical Irish figures and stuff. I then read A Magic Steeped in Poison. I do also have another spoiler-free review for this one, so definitely go if you want me to check that one out. And this follows a young girl, Ning, who is a Shenong-shi, who are the kind of people in this world who have magic, and they have magic through tea, which is like the coolest concept ever. And, you know, brewing different teas with their magic can give people different properties and stuff. You know, they can brew tea for courage or for truth-telling, or to like see into someone's memories and stuff. Really, really awesome stuff. And you kind of follow her as she is going to the capital to take part in a competition to become the next Shenong-shi to the emperor. And she's going because her sister is really ill and her mother has just died and stuff, so she's kind of completely on her own with just her father and her sister. And she's going to this competition to try and see if she can win the favour of the emperor and get a cure for her sister. And again, just really fantastic story. I had a few issues with the pacing and a bit of the character moments and stuff, but, you know, the characters are all really interesting, the plot is really, really interesting as well, and the whole magic system as well is just so cool. I absolutely love it. But definitely feel free to go check out my spoiler-free review to hear more of my thoughts on that one. But I also just absolutely adored A Magic Steeped in Poison, and I'll definitely be reading the sequel. I then read Into the Broken Lands, which I received an e-arc for, so thank you very much to the author and publisher for sending me that. I do have a spoiler-free review for that as well, so definitely go and check that out if you want to hear more of my in-depth thoughts on this book. This is a really sort of almost simple story, just following this core group of characters, following our main character Ryan, who is heir to the Lord Protector of the country. And he and his sort of little party have been tasked with going into this place called the Broken Lands, which is an area of their country that has been ravaged by magecraft in the last Mage War, and it's full of really dangerous magic, magical creatures, magical places, and even the very ground beneath their feet is full of dangerous magic that is going to try and kill them. And it starts off with them entering the village gateway, which is a sort of village on the just sort of on the border between their country and the Broken Lands. And in this village lives this woman who is a living weapon created by one of the mages in the Mage War. And she's then tasked with escorting them through the Broken Lands safely to retrieve this thing that they've been sent to go and find, and then try and get them back again. And that's basically the story. It's a really, really interesting character study, I think, of our main character Ryan, and as well as the living weapon Nonny. You know, Ryan's a really interesting character because he was never meant to be heir to the Lord Protector, but his 3 older brothers have died very recently, so he's found himself in this position of power that he never expected to be in. and he doesn't feel respected, and neither does he feel that he has earned that respect. And then we also have Nonny, who has a life in the village of Gateway and stuff, but is very much still seen as a sort of inanimate object by the people who have come that she has to then escort through the Broken Lands. And it's very much just sort of, you find out a lot about her personality through this aspect of the story. And as well, you're following, you know, like I said, you're following Ryan and his characters, but then you also get chapters of point of view of his great uncle Garrett, who made the journey about 60 years ago or something, and when he was heir to the Lord Protector, and you're following him, Nonny, and Ariana, this woman who was a healer in the Gateway village who comes along with them. And you sort of follow the same journey but across two different time periods with two different sets of people, and you get to just see the parallels and the differences between their journeys and their personalities, and what they perhaps, you know, what Ryan's company perhaps learned from what Garrett and Ariana and that went through. And overall you're learning about Nonny from both points of view and from both sets of people, about who she is and what she stands for and the circumstances that created her. And it's just a like I said, it's just a really, really interesting, almost slow burn of a story, although it is definitely, you know, fast paced enough. You know, lots of things do happen to both sets of characters in the Broken Lands. And but overall, yeah, it's just a really, really great book. I have nothing but good things to say about it. It was such a surprise to me. Like, I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I do, but I did really, really enjoy that one. So definitely go and check out my spoiler-free thoughts on that if you want to just get a bit more of an idea as to what I mean when I say I loved it. But overall, just absolutely adored it. And I also forgot to mention that I also read The Wolf and the Woodspoon, which is a book from my local book club. And whilst I enjoyed this one, I didn't love it as much as everything else I read this month. You know, it's set in a sort of fantasy world very much inspired by Hungarian folklore and stuff. So I absolutely loved that aspect of it. And you're kind of set in this, initially in this village where all the young girls have got magic, and but everywhere else in the country magic has been outlawed. It's getting sort of stamped down, but for some reason the king allows this village to exist, and every sort of few years he sends his sort of soldiers, the woodsmen, to come, and they come and collect one of these girls who have magic and bring them to the capital, never to be seen again. And they don't really know what, they have no idea what the king wants with these girls, especially since he's so anti-magic. And everything kind of gets set into motion when our main character, whose name I can't remember, is one of the only girls in the village who does not have magic, and she is sent as the sort of sacrifice, as the tribute, in place of the girl who was supposed to go, who does have magic, that the village want to keep to themselves. And everything kind of goes from there, and you're following our main character and the woodsman who she sort of ends up travelling with, and they get to sort of find out more about each other despite the kind of shared history, shared animosity towards one another because of where they both come from. You know, he's from the very religious anti-magic sort of sect, whereas, you know, she was grown up to believe that magic was good and pure. And, you know, really interesting story. You know, I didn't really care much for the main characters. I did not care at all for the relationship. It was just really forced. I feel like everything still would have worked really well if they'd just been friends. And I feel like if that's the case, then you shouldn't be making them a romance at all, because there's nothing for me then to be like, yes, this is what sets this apart from a friendship. And I also really, really liked the Jewish representation that you have in this book. You know, our main character, her father was, you know, this fantasy world's version of a Jew, and you get to sort of, once you get to the capital, you get to sort of see that kind of sect and how they're treated. And I just thought it was just a really lovely representation to see as well. It's such a positive representation as well, and you get to see our main character, her own attitude towards it, and how she sort of starts to accept that part of her heritage and stuff. That was really, really lovely to see. You know, I've never read anything with Jewish representation in it before, especially in Fantasyland, so that was really cool to see. But yeah, overall, it was alright, but, you know, not my favourite thing ever, but I did really like the world building and the religious sort of aspect that we do see in that book. But yeah, that's everything from me today. Those are the books that I read this month. Have you read any of these, or do you plan to read any of these when they come out? Definitely let me know down below in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts on any of these books, if you've read them or plan to read them. What did you read in July? Let me know what your July wrap-up is in the comments below. If you've reached the end of this video, feel free to leave a like and feel free to subscribe. I usually post 2 videos a week. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.